This, my friends, is one of Christopher Nolan's greatest achievements yet. Hi, I'm Brian Rowe, this is the awards contender, and in today's video, I'm reviewing Christopher Nolan's newest film, Oppenheimer. So I watched Barbie first, had a great time, really loved it, then I had a quick dinner, and then it was back to the movies to see Oppenheimer. What an incredible double feature Barbenheimer was. Like, I'm still reeling from it the next day. Like, that was pretty spectacular. Like, I've had double features at the theater here and there. When I go to film festivals, I'll watch like 4 or 5 movies in a single day. But the sheer creative risks these two movies take, the boldness, the great visions, taking something that could have been just standard run-of-the-mill and make it really personal and make it just really, really exciting for the viewer. I was so impressed by both of these movies, and Oppenheimer is a winner. I have been such a huge Christopher Nolan fan, going all the way back to Memento in the spring of 2001. When I'd been hearing great things, I dragged my friend Brandon, and we checked out Memento, and I was like, this is one of the greatest movies ever made. And not every single movie he's made I've loved. I really struggled in Tenet 3 years ago. That one didn't really work for me. But Nolan is back in fine form with Oppenheimer, with a very awards-friendly movie. It's a very complicated film. This is not an easy watch by any means. It's 3 hours long. It's not brief. You kind of have to be mentally prepared for this movie because there are just so many scenes in this movie that are exhilarating, that take your breath away, that delight you in editing choices, cinematography choices. Christopher Nolan is always inventive as a filmmaker, but in Oppenheimer, he's taking huge leaps. There are scenes in this film that completely astounded me, that I felt like I had never seen in another movie before, the way that he brings the viewer into Oppenheimer's mind at times. We get a little bit at the beginning of the movie, right from the get-go. You get a sense of who this guy is, what he's thinking, how everything ticks with him, and how he's going to be a brilliant, brilliant mind for everything that's to come. This is no straightforward biopic. Like, it's not the easiest movie to follow. Nolan jumps all around in time the whole movie. Some of it is in color, some of it is in black and white. It's not always clear exactly like what timeline we're in, but that's part of the fun. That's part of the puzzle of this film. This is not a movie that you're able to watch once and you got it all, everything makes sense, never have to watch it again. I was in the second half of Oppenheimer, a little confused at times, but in a good way. It made me want to explore outside of this movie more about this guy's life, about everything that happened to him, and find an even deeper understanding to all of these fascinating characters part of the story. This was one of the most thrilling movie-going experiences that I've had in many years, and it was so exciting to see one of my favorite directors, Christopher Nolan, really expand his horizons with this story. It's the kind of film he hasn't really made, I would argue, since Memento, where we're really getting into the headspace of this main character, what his family dynamic is like, how one singular person evolves over time, how he thinks a certain way about something, and then as he gets older, realizes maybe he has some regrets, maybe he made some wrong choices. Like, for me, a lot of what Christopher Nolan has been doing for the last 20 plus years as a filmmaker has all kind of worked toward this movie, because in every minute of this 3-hour epic, it feels like Christopher Nolan is composing a symphony of images, of sounds, of silence. No idea is off the table here. In Oppenheimer, he's not relying on 3 big action sequences to really draw us in. This movie is not about action. It's about people. It's about ideas. It's about how one man's choices has an extreme effect on so many other people's lives. And through the tools of filmmaking, Christopher Nolan allows this story to live on this grand cinematic landscape that no other director would have brought to the real-life story of Robert Oppenheimer. Like, a tiny indie film about this subject matter might have been interesting, I don't know, but the way that Nolan delivers it to us is just so exciting. It's so masterful. I just was so taken with this vision, and his ability to just constantly draw us into the story with so many creative choices. Obviously, one of the best choices that Nolan made was casting Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. what an amazing actor this guy is. I have loved him going back to, I want to say, like the late 90s and the early 2000s. Films like 28 Days Later and Red Eye. He's always been an actor I admire, but he doesn't get a lot of lead roles. Like when you look at Christopher Nolan's output over the last 20 years, you see Cillian Murphy a lot, but he's never had a lead role in a Nolan film, and it's about damn time. He is so intelligent behind those eyes, so intense, can be standoffish, can be slightly unlikable. There is a coldness to Cillian Murphy that really works for this character. He's not always the most emotive guy. There are scenes where he's just sitting there or standing, looking off, like thinking. And for him to be in almost every scene for 3 hours, it was a thrill. Like, he obviously knew how great of a character he had in this movie. He understands the opportunity to have a lead role in a Christopher Nolan film. He was not gonna mess this up, and he delivers big time. I loved him in this. I do think he gets his very first Oscar nomination next year for his performance in Oppenheimer. This movie is just a who's who of names. So many great talents in this. Like, I lost track after a while. So many amazing performances. Obviously, someone already getting some Oscar buzz is Robert Downey Jr., who has a tremendous supporting role in this. He really gets to chew the scenery at the very end, and it's one of the best parts he's ever gotten in a film, especially in the last 20 years. He's been nominated twice for an Oscar he's never won. There's been talk of him kind of being the top contender. He just so naturally relaxes into this role of Lewis Strauss. He's never over the top. His point of view is always really interesting to listen to, and you understand where he's coming from. That's a great character in the film. I loved Matt Damon in this movie as Leslie Groves. I found Damon to be a distraction in Interstellar. Like, when he popped up in that movie, it kind of took me out, but that was not the case in Oppenheimer. He gets a lot of scenes in this movie, mostly with Cillian Murphy, and he is a delight to watch. David Krumholtz is excellent in this. Like, he's come a long way from Addams Family Values. Like, his physical look, his voice, he's really come into his own as an actor too. Josh Hartnett has his first good role in a long while. Kenneth Branagh is great. No Michael Caine. I was surprised to not see Michael Caine pop up somewhere. I was like, how do you not have Michael Caine in a Christopher Nolan movie? But no, he's not here. There is an excellent one-scene performance in this film that I will not spoil for you, but you'll know it when it comes. It's an Oscar-winning actor. I don't even think he's credited. I didn't see his name in the end credits when I watched. Like, the way he delivers his lines, the intimidation is stunning, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie, easy. And then Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt get some fantastic scenes as well. I would have liked them both to be in more of the movie, but when they're on screen, they are on fire in this. The technicals, as expected, are fantastic. I think this movie gets Oscar nominations for Best Sound. It probably wins Best Sound. It'll get in for film editing, cinematography, maybe even costume design. Like, as I talked about in my Oscar predictions video from a couple weeks back, which I learned my lesson. I shouldn't do that until I've seen the movie. I'm going to know that moving forward now, because I'm probably going to have to make an updated video now. My Oscar predictions for both Barbie and Oppenheimer are a little bit different now that I've seen both films. I think Oppenheimer might get at least one more acting nomination than I was expecting, and I don't think it gets into visual effects because there's not really any visual effects in the movie. I don't know why I thought there were. Like, there are a few little pieces here and there, stunning imagery that I guess could maybe qualify for visual effects, but no, I don't think that's gonna happen. But even still, I think this gets into 8, 9, 10 Oscar categories, and Best Sound especially. Like, the way Nolan uses sound in this movie blew me away. The detonation scene, which I won't talk about much, but the way that Nolan integrates silence into that pivotal scene in the movie is stunning work. It is incredible. I mean, I just had my jaw dropped open for a couple minutes. I was like, this is so beautifully realized. Just great stuff. And there is a moment later in the movie when Oppenheimer is giving a lecture where Nolan plays with sound, with editing, with the cinematography that bowled me over, that just thrilled me, and brought us really deep insight into Oppenheimer's mental state. And I loved how he would use these cinematic tools to do that for us. This movie might be 3 hours long, but it moves really fast. I didn't really feel the length. This is not a kind of slow-moving biopic Like that could have been made by a different director, but Christopher Nolan, even if he's not making like a superhero movie, an action film, he almost always, no matter what genre playground he's playing in, paces his films like a thriller, and that is the case with Oppenheimer. There are very few scenes in the 3-hour running time where everything just kind of slows down and lets people just converse for a couple minutes. Like most scenes in Oppenheimer feel like they're maybe a minute long, 90 seconds. There's no like extended monologue from any one character where we're just kind of in the same room watching one person talk for a while. Like this movie chugs along. Like we're never in any one space for more than a couple minutes. And I like that about Nolan's work. I like that he allows his movies to keep moving. He is not a filmmaker and letting his audience just kind of sit back and let things wash over them. He wants us to be constantly working, thinking, connecting pieces of this character to that character to this event that happened 30 minutes ago to what they're talking about now. This is not an easy watch. You have to be paying attention, and I'm going to need to see it a couple more times to really understand all of the intricacies of this narrative. But like, it's also not Memento. It's not like a movie where you're getting a headache and you're like, wait, how does this what? Like, you can follow it. You can understand why Oppenheimer does what he does, how he thinks later on in life about what he accomplished, what he created. It is a really, really terrific movie. Now, like every Christopher Nolan film, it's not perfect. I did think the female characters in Oppenheimer were a little bit underwritten. I wanted more Florence Pugh. I wanted more Emily Blunt. Especially Blunt. She plays a significant role in the film as Oppenheimer's wife, mother of his 2 kids, and there are large chunks of this movie where she disappears, where we don't see her. And outside of one moment in an interrogation room at the end, we don't get a lot of long scenes with Blunt. Like, she'll show up for a moment, she'll have 2 or 3 lines, and then we don't see her again for 20 minutes. Now, I didn't need Emily Blunt's character to be in half the movie, but I felt like there was room in 3 hours to have a couple more significant moments with her to make her character a little bit more three-dimensional. I felt like there was room here to give us more Emily Blunt. And same thing with Florence Pugh. She is incredible in this movie. She makes such a big impression with maybe 4 or 5 minutes of screen time in 3 hours. Like, she's not in this much. And her dynamic with Oppenheimer is fascinating. At an early part of his life, how he develops a strong connection, love for this woman who is not his wife. The movie plays into that relationship a little bit here and there. But again, I would have loved to have seen more of that. Christopher Nolan has never been the best director of women. The female characters in his movies have never really popped in a way that they could. And I do feel like the very long running time in Oppenheimer allowed for a few more scenes, a few more beats, a few more emotional moments, especially with Blunt. I felt like some of her scenes were a little too fast. I wanted her character to have a chance to breathe a little bit more. That's just me. I don't know if other people felt that way. I love Emily Blunt. She is one of my favorite actors, and I wanted even more of her in this. And then another thing I thought about sometimes while watching the movie, I thought the score, as great as it is, Ludwig Göransson is an amazing composer. There are some moments of score in Oppenheimer that take your breath away. I thought at times it was a little overdone. Like, there were some spaces of this 3-hour film where I'm like, okay, let's quiet down the score. Let's let these 2 people just talk. Sometimes the score, even in like a quiet dialogue scene in the interrogation room, is just kind of beating you over the head. And I was like, let's quiet things down a little bit here and there. It's okay. We don't have to have the score going in every scene. Very, very, very few moments in Oppenheimer are quiet and don't have score. I mean, again, I think the score is fantastic. It's absolutely going to get nominated for an Oscar. There are some scenes in the movie where the score really ratchets up the tension, but then there are some dialogue scenes. I thought, okay, we can go quiet here, but the score is still going crazy, and I'm like let's take a beat here. I also think there might be a few too many characters in this film. I mean, there's a lot of people that come and go. A famous actor will show up for a scene and then leave, and we never see him again. And I wondered at times if we needed like all of these people to be a part of the story, if it could have been condensed like a little bit. I think that small quibble for me will be helped with future viewings of the movie, and there's a documentary about Oppenheimer I want to watch. I might even read a book about this guy. I mean, just what a fascinating life. I want to learn more and more. I went into this movie totally cold. I had seen 1 or 2 trailers. I didn't even know that much about the story. When it's Christopher Nolan, I like to just go in not knowing much and just see how everything plays out. And so I think the many characters throughout this film might have confused me at times on viewing number 1, but I think that will be helped when I watch the movie a second time, a third time. Trust me, I'm going to be watching this movie again and again. What an astounding achievement from Christopher Nolan. This is a guy who's been doing phenomenal work for more than 2 decades now. I really hope this is his year. This is his year to finally win at least one Oscar. I cannot believe this talented artist has never won an Academy Award. He should have at least 1 or 2 by now. And I hope at least, that Oppenheimer will bring him his first victory in 2024. This movie is going to get lots of Oscar nominations, and I will be happy to see every single one. I think it gets into Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, and I do think Robert Downey Jr. has a very good chance of getting into Supporting Actor. I don't know about Emily Blunt in Best Supporting Actress. I don't know if she has enough to do in the movie, but she does have a couple moments at the end of the movie that are great. Overall, I am just so incredibly happy with how Barbenheimer played out. I did not expect to love both Barbie and Oppenheimer, but I did. I loved both of these movies. Both of them had a couple little flaws, but not much, mostly quibbles. Oppenheimer is an amazing piece of cinema that you must see on the big screen. Do not wait for this to come to your home. Go to the theater and see Oppenheimer. I cannot wait to see what Christopher Nolan does next. I loved Oppenheimer. What a thrill it was to watch it opening night on the biggest screen we have in my town with a sold-out crowd. I am giving Oppenheimer a 9 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments below what you thought of Oppenheimer. Did you love it as much as I did? And how many Oscar nominations do you think it'll receive next year? We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.